I'll never forget the sound of my father's voice on that phone call. Cold, clinical, like he was discussing a failed business transaction rather than his son's shattered marriage. "I heard about Ella," he said, not even bothering with a greeting. "Can't say I'm surprised. This is what happens when you're never good enough." Those words hit harder than discovering my wife's affair, harder than finding the hotel receipts, harder than seeing her lipstick on another man's collar. Because deep down, some broken part of me wondered if he was right. I grew up in the shadow of Robert Chen's empire. Luxury hotels across 3 continents, real estate portfolios that made financial news, a net worth with so many zeros I stopped counting as a kid. But none of that mattered to me. While my father built towers of glass and steel, I fell in love with history, with stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, with teaching teenagers that their worth wasn't measured in stock options and quarterly earnings. The day I told him I'd accepted a teaching position instead of joining Chen International, I watched something die in his eyes. "You're throwing away your birthright," he'd said, his jaw tight with barely controlled rage. "Do you know how many people would kill for the opportunities you're spitting on?" "I don't want those opportunities, Dad. I want to make a difference." He laughed, actually laughed. "A difference? You'll make $40,000 a year grading papers while your name, my name, collects dust in some mediocre public school." That was 15 years ago. He'd barely spoken to me since. Until he heard about Ella. I met her at a teachers' conference in Portland. She taught elementary school, had kind eyes, and actually listened when I talked about my students. She didn't care about my last name or my father's money, or so I thought. We married in a small ceremony. My father showed up late, stayed for exactly 17 minutes and pulled me aside before leaving. "She's a gold digger," he whispered, loud enough for Ella to hear. "She'll bleed you dry, then move on to someone who can actually provide for her. Mark my words." I was furious. Ella cried the entire night. I swore I'd prove him wrong. I'd show him that love didn't have a price tag, that happiness wasn't measured in square footage and European vacations. We built a life on teachers' salaries, a modest apartment in the suburbs, movie nights instead of theater premieres, hiking trails instead of Mediterranean cruises. For 7 years, I believed we were happy. The cracks started small. Ella mentioning her friends' bigger homes, sighing when her college roommate posted vacation photos from the Maldives, comments about how we were falling behind people our age. Then my father made his offer. "I have a position opening up in my marketing department," he told Ella at an awkward family dinner I'd been guilted into attending. "Entry level, but the salary is substantial. 6 figures to start." I watched Ella's eyes light up, that same spark I'd seen when I proposed. "Dad, Ella's a teacher. She loves teaching." "Does she?" He looked directly at her. "Or does she love the idea of teaching? There's a difference. One pays the bills, the other doesn't." I begged her not to take it. We fought for 3 days straight, but the truth was already written on her face. She'd made her choice before the offer was even formally extended. She started at Chen International on a Monday. By Friday, she was coming home later. By the end of the month, she stopped coming home at all some nights. "Late meetings," she'd text. "Big project. Don't wait up." I found the messages on a Tuesday. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower. I wasn't the snooping type, but something made me look. "Can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again?" The sender, Marcus Webb, Vice President of Operations. The man my father had once told me was everything a son should be: ambitious, ruthless, willing to do what it takes. I scrolled up. Months of messages, hotel rooms, stolen afternoons, detailed plans about how they'd have to be careful around the office. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. When Ella emerged from the bathroom, wrapped in the robe I'd bought her for our 5th anniversary, I just showed her the screen. She didn't even try to deny it. Just sighed, like I'd caught her forgetting to buy milk. "It just happened, okay? Marcus makes me feel alive, important, like I matter. And I don't make you feel that way?" She looked at me with something close to pity. "You're a good man, but good isn't enough. Your father was right about you. You settled for mediocrity, and you expected me to settle too." She packed a bag and left. I sat on our worn couch in our modest apartment and felt every choice I'd ever made collapse around me. That's when my father called. "I heard," he said again. "Ella moved in with Marcus. They're not even trying to hide it. The whole office knows." I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. This is what happens when you refuse to be who you were born to be, he continued, his voice dripping with disdain. You chose poverty over power, principle over pragmatism, and now you've lost everything because you were never good enough to keep it. Dad, don't call me for money. Don't come crawling back asking for a position. You made your bed, now lie in it alone. He hung up. I sat in the dark for 3 hours. Then I called a divorce attorney. Dr. Sofia Martinez had a reputation for being brilliant and brutally honest. Her office was small but impeccably organized. She listened to my story without interrupting, taking notes on a legal pad. Straightforward case, she said when I finished. Infidelity is documented. We'll file, divide assets, which sounds minimal, and you'll be free in 6 months. That's it? She looked up from her notes. Is there something else? My father, he works with both of them, with Ella and Marcus. It feels, I don't know, convenient. Sophia's pen stopped moving. Convenient how? Ella was promoted 4 times in 8 months. She has a bachelor's degree in elementary education and 0 business experience. Yet somehow she's now a senior marketing coordinator making 3 times what I make. Sophia leaned forward. How well do you know Marcus Webb? My father's always held him up as an example. Says he's the best VP he's ever had. Loyal, effective. And your relationship with your father? Non-existent. He disowned me for becoming a teacher instead of joining his company. Something shifted in Sophia's expression. Mr. Chen, I need your permission to do something. I want to hire a private investigator. Not for the affair. That's already proven. But there are details here that don't add up. Ella's promotions, the timing, your father's involvement. If you're willing, I'd like to look deeper. I almost said no. Almost told her it didn't matter. That I just wanted it over. But something in her tone, a certainty that she'd seen this pattern before, made me nod. Do it. The investigator's name was James, former FBI. He delivered his report 3 weeks later in Sophia's office. Your wife's promotions had no merit basis, he said, sliding a folder across the desk. No reviews, no evaluations, just executive mandates signed by your father. All 4 promotions happened within 48 hours of private dinners. Just your father, Ella, and Marcus Webb. My stomach turned. There's more, James continued. I found archived emails on the company server. Your father specifically requested Ella be paired with Marcus on multiple projects. Alone, extended hours, out-of-town conferences. He set them up, I whispered. That's what the evidence suggests. But it goes deeper. James pulled out another document. 6 months before Ella took the job, your father increased Marcus Webb's salary by 40%. No reason given, just a reward. Sophia's jaw was tight. He bought a weapon. I looked at her, confused. Your father couldn't break you by cutting you off, she explained quietly. You didn't care about money. You were happy, so he needed to break you another way. He found your wife's weakness, financial insecurity, status anxiety, and he weaponized it. He put her in close proximity to an attractive, successful man who he'd incentivized to play along. Then he gave them opportunity after opportunity. The room spun. I found one more thing, James said, his voice gentle now. An email from your father to Marcus sent the day before Ella's first promotion. Subject line, the long game. He slid the printout toward me. I read it 3 times before the words made sense. Marcus, phase 1 complete. The bait is set. Remember, patience. Let her come to you. When she does, I want documentation. Every meeting, every text. When my son finally breaks, I want him to know it was his weakness that cost him everything. Then he'll come back where he belongs. RC. My father had orchestrated my wife's affair to destroy me, to prove I was worthless, to force me back into his empire, broken and compliant. I stood up so fast the chair toppled backward. Where are you going? Sophia asked. To see my father. Wait, we should plan. No. My voice didn't sound like my own. No more planning, no more waiting. I drove to Chen International headquarters. Walked past security like I owned the place because technically one day I was supposed to. Took the elevator to the executive floor. Barged into my father's office without knocking. He looked up from his computer, unsurprised. Took you long enough, he said. I threw the folder on his desk. Emails scattered across the mahogany surface. You did this. All of it. You turned my wife into your chess piece just to prove a point. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. I showed her who she really was. She was always going to cheat, son. I just accelerated the timeline. Why? Because you're a Chen. He slammed his hand on the desk. Because you have a responsibility to this family, this company, and you threw it away to play teacher. I gave you 15 years to come to your senses, you didn't. So I removed the distraction. She wasn't a distraction. She was my wife. She was a leech. And now she's gone. You have nothing left but the truth. You need me. You need this. He gestured around the office. Your little rebellion is over. Come back. Take your rightful place. I'll even forgive the tantrum. I stared at the man who was supposed to love me, protect me, and all I saw was a stranger. You're right about one thing, I said quietly. I do have nothing. No money, no mansion, no empire. His smile was triumphant. Finally, acceptance. But I have something you'll never understand. I have integrity. I have students who actually respect me. I have a life I chose, not one I inherited. And now I have proof of everything you've done. His smile faltered. I have emails showing you manipulated employees into an affair. I have documentation of unethical promotions, conflicts of interest, and abuse of power. I have enough to destroy your reputation, trigger a board investigation, and tank your stock price. You wouldn't dare. You're right. I won't. I picked up the folder. Because I'm not like you, I don't destroy people to prove a point. But here's what's going to happen. You're going to set up an educational foundation in my name, $50 million, scholarships for students who want to teach, and you're never going to contact me again, ever. Or what? Or I send everything to the Wall Street Journal and the board of directors. Your legacy becomes a cautionary tale about corporate abuse. Your choice. We stared at each other for a long moment. Then he nodded once, sharp, angry, done. One more thing, I said at the door. Ella and Marcus, fire them both. Today, and make sure everyone knows why. I didn't wait for his response. Sophia had the divorce papers ready. With my father's evidence, Ella got nothing. Marcus Webb was terminated for ethics violations and would never work in corporate leadership again. Ella's last text to me was simple. I'm sorry. I was wrong about everything. I didn't respond. 6 months later, I'm still teaching. Still in my modest apartment. Still driving my 10-year-old Honda. The Chen Educational Foundation just awarded its first 100 scholarships. The press release mentioned my father's name once. Mine was in the headline. Sophia and I get coffee every Wednesday. Last week, she held my hand across the table. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said, and meant it. I'm more than good enough. I always was. Being good enough was never about my father's approval. It was never about matching someone else's definition of success. It was about living with integrity, even when it cost me everything, especially when it cost me everything. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment below. Have you ever had to choose between being yourself and meeting someone else's expectations? How did you find the courage to stay true to who you are? Remember, you don't need anyone's permission to be enough. You already are.